Hello and welcome to today's video. I'm sorry for the background noise. We're just going to have to work through that. Here we have the stats I kept track of during FlyQuest PSG and T1 Astral. So we're going to go over those and try and find some interesting things from the games. And then we have previews for tomorrow's games in the case of Top Esports Loud, as well as GAM Esports and Fnatic. So first, FlyQuest PSG. That matchup definitely is the most even or toss up, if you will, of the four. I know I had some people in the comment section believe that if FlyQuest did not 2-0 PSG, it would be, quote, a disappointment, unquote. Personally, I picked PSG to win this 2-1. I thought that FlyQuest bot lane was going to struggle in first series. And that was definitely not the case. Masu showed up and did his job. Buzio didn't int too much. Found ways to make things happen. PSG's bot lane, not necessarily as oppressive as you would like, but also, that top lane matchup of Bwipo into Ozzy was always going to be a little lopsided. I even acknowledged that yesterday, that Bwipo is coin flip, but, if he flipped heads, he was going to win the matchup big time, and he did. So, game one, PSG would take this one. Great team fighting around some key Drakes. Maple doing very well around, I believe, the sixth Drake. And then Jensen, mid laners. Jensen did well later on in the game. But then Betty won the Drake fight after FlyQuest actually took Soul in game one. So let's just go over what I have here first. In terms of making plays, throughout this series, it was pretty close, 9-7 in favor of FlyQuest. In terms, for me, a dive, a gank, something like that, a lane swap in and of itself is not a play, in my opinion, but the dive that ensues after, or a gank, or whatever, would be the case. In terms of Grubs and Rift Herald, this is something really interesting. So, PSG actually got 17 of 18 Grubs in this series and 2 of 3 Rift Heralds. That is extremely lopsided, right? It clearly shows the trade that was made, right? So PSG saying we want Grubs and FlyQuest saying that's fine, we'll take Drakes, and they took 13 of 16 in this series. And that in and of itself should kind of show, the Drake side was winning this matchup. And of course, Bwipo went off on the Urgot and then the Olaf in game 3. As well as Masu doing a lot of work and dealing damage as well. And I guess Jensen. Everybody on FlyQuest did their job. Inspired did great as a facilitator on the Maokai, and I believe the Sejuani, if I recall correctly. So, dominant performance. So, other stats to kind of take from this, we had FlyQuest with 4 power plays. And on average got 1635 for gold, so 1,635. The fourth one ending a game, so in and of that, I guess I could have had more gold off of that one. That's something I want to track throughout this tournament, is how well teams do with Barons as well as against Barons. So if it's 1635 for Fly, that means PSG allowed 1635 per Baron. PSG also had 2 Barons themselves, but FlyQuest were very effective in stopping them. The first one, PSG only got like 70 gold off of it. And then the second one, Bwipo won the team fight that occurred after. Around 24 minutes, there was a team fight. 24 minutes, Inspired steals a Drake, if I recall. And then Junjia would then steal a Baron, and then the rest of PSG would die due to Bwipo. So that was massive, of course, in that team fight, in that game in particular, because it turned the game, right? If you get a Baron stolen, that may be the difference maker. That may give PSG an opportunity to crawl back into the game. So game one, 3 Barons 3 Barons in the game. FlyQuest did very well with them. There was a 1.1k gold lead for PSG's bot lane in this one when laning phase ended at 10 minutes. Game 2, PSG also had a massive lead in mid lane. They're up 1.4k gold in game 2. They had went mid lane 3 times to put Jensen behind. But FlyQuest consistently taking Drakes and then also flipping the fight after PSG took Baron was a massive deal. That was what stopped PSG, in my opinion. In game 3, so in terms of CS, there's a big difference with PSG up 17 in bot lane at 16 minutes when the Drake fell. But, not Drake, the turret, Jesus Christ. But FlyQuest were up 100 gold. Jensen had a 1.1k gold lead in mid lane. Maple's Karma. FlyQuest went after Maple big time in game 3. They would end up making 4 plays towards him. Clearly, FlyQuest of the matchup in general, they wanted to emphasize getting Maple out of game 3. We saw Karma buffed going into this event, but it was meant for support, not necessarily mid lane, so it was an interesting pick. FlyQuest would get 2 Barons in game 3, and they did very well with them, at totaling almost 3,700 gold with them, and ending the game with the second one. They also took Elder, so I mean, FlyQuest ended up really dragging that one out and getting it done. Some stats from that series. Masu 21-5 and 22, 31% of damage share. Inspired 6-3-50 in the jungle. And then Betty, I think that's supposed to say 19-10 and 9, 30% of damage in the loss. I would have liked to have nicer stats, but Game of Legend is not giving me stats as of the time I'm making this video. And although you could say, well, what, do you rip stats from there? No, not necessarily, but I utilize their stats to try and figure out like return on investment. Another stat I'm trying to come up with. I know somebody in the Discord messaged me asking, they brought something to my attention. They had a formula of their own, and we've been working through it a bit. But there's stuff that I would like to do that I could not do to determine game impact. So we have the basic stats here. Afterwards, we have T1 Astral. I mean, I expected T1 to win this 2-0, but Astral put up a massive fight. I think it's a mix of two things here. T1 kind of taking Astral lightly, lane swaps being messy in general, and Astral were not going to go down quietly. So they played very well. Jose Deodo in game 2 was absolutely cracked. That game in and of itself is a glimpse of how good Jose Deodo is and how he should be in a major region. The fact that he isn't is a shame. So in this series, in terms of plays, 6-4 in favor of T1. Definitely attacking either side of the rift for lane swap purposes. One side going one way, the other side going the other. And then in terms of Grub's Rift Herald, they both split Heralds and Grub, 6 to each side, 1 to each side. Drake's, however, T1 took 7 and Astral took 1. So that was a big difference maker. And then power plays. T1 had a Baron in both. Technically ended the game with them. On average up 1753, so 1,753 gold. So, I mean, to describe this, Zeus had some moments into Zoltve. Zoltve actually outplaying the 1v1 very well, despite being down quite a bit of experience. I think multiple levels and quite a bit of CS. So, in game 1, T1 were up 30 CS in top lane. 27 CS in bot lane, 2.5k gold for Guma Carrier. Snacker and Ackerman actually doing quite well at times, given the circumstances, if you will. Clearly, Astral wanted to go mid lane trying to get Faker behind. That would not matter because Faker would then lead the team in KDA and damage share. So it's like, good job. That really, I mean, that didn't really work out. You know, you have a Draven lane and you're going mid lane. I mean, you got to do what you got to do with the lane swaps and everything, kind of making things messy, but at the same time, it is definitely a decision. Let's put it that way. Because in game 2, I mean, Zeus was up 1.2k gold, 49 CS, but still got solo killed. So that's not great. Jose did have a lead over Owner in game 2, but then 22 CS lead for Faker in game 2, and Guma carry up 19. Carrier on the Rumble, dealing a ton of damage in game 2, I think over 700 DPM. We saw high DPM performances too out of Woody, I'd like to say. On the Ashe, he dealt like 750 DPM. And I'm going to give him credit. He hit a lot of nice arrows and did his job. He did his job, and I think people need to give him a little bit more credit for that. But you know, Astral actually had moments in this series in the games where they were ahead in kills. Now, gold wasn't reflective of that, but they were finding plays. And they were finding outnumbered situations, and although it didn't turn into anything, the problem is you get a kill, you got to turn something, you got to make something out of it. And you saw them actually in a moment get a kill, I believe, in the bot lane, and then lost a turret maybe, and lost a lot of mat pressure, and that just kind of snowballed from there. So it's just one of those things where it's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. You got to kind of figure out what you want to do there. Another thing that kind of is an issue maybe for Aral is that in Latin America, they went 32-5 this year, including playoffs. So they have not had to face very tough competition, and they haven't had to like fight from behind on stage, if you will, all that often. One thing that was surprising going into this matchup, though, that I looked into was that both teams were below 30% first turret rate in playoffs. And for T1 going 8-7, I mean, that's not a massive shock. But Aral were at like 27% or something, and they went 12-3 or something like that. So it's definitely something that I'm gonna monitor. What are the win rates of teams that get first turret? What are the win rates if you trade Void Grubs for Drake in this tournament? Because there's definitely something to be said for that. Preview for tomorrow, we got Top Esports and Loud. First, so this is obviously a matchup. It's a matchup. So, in terms of bans by both sides, in top lane, top bans Jax and TF. Loud do not ban anything. They don't ban anything top lane. They let Robo go solo up there. Jungle, Jax is a flex. And then we have Xin Zhao and Vi banned by Top Esports. So they don't play against Vi or Xin Zhao all that much. A lot of people saying, oh, ban Tian Xin Zhao. And it's like, well, it's one of their most banned themselves. It's either pick or ban to them. And Loud ban Vi and Maokai themselves. So Vi, neither team likes to play into. Mid lane, Top Esports ban Ari. Loud don't ban anything. In bot lane, Top Esports usually let 80 carries go, but Loud do ban Callista and Varus. Support-wise, we see Loud ban Rakan and Rel, so I guess you could say Rel is another jungle ban also. And Top Esports also banned Rakan. So Rakan and Vi, two champs for both teams, really don't like playing into them. Against top lane, Top Esports ban Rumble. And, against. So people ban Rumble against Top Esports. Isn't that ironic? 369's Rumble. And then Loud face a lot of Olaf bans, Robo one trick. Jungle-wise, Top Esports usually face Maokai and Poppy bans. Tian's already facing two bans on average. And in mid lane, they usually face Tristana bans, so people not wanting to play into Kareem's Tristana. In terms of Loud, people usually ban Tino's Talia. Bot lane, Senna and Trist banned against Jackie Love. And then Loud facing a lot of bans. So Root usually has to kind of sift through the shit, if you will. Getting Senna, Lucian, and Jinx banned against him. So both teams usually face some Senna bans. We'll see if that ends up being a high prio pick tomorrow. At support, both teams face Nautilus bans as well. Fnatic, GAM Esports. GAM, of course, Kiea, Levi are two returning players, but the other three leaving a little bit to be desired. Elio, I guess, he isn't a replacement, but then again, he is. We'll see how he does at this event. Let's put it that way. Top lane. These teams usually ban. So Fnatic bans Rumble, Twisted Fate, Volibear. GAM bans Rek'Sai. In the jungle, Fnatic, I guess, also ban Volibear because of flex. GAM face Lee Sin, will ban Lee Sin. And they also, by flex, ban Rek'Sai. Mid lane, Orianna, and I guess Twisted Fate for Fnatic. So Fnatic usually getting rid of Orianna. And then GAM usually ban Karma and Tristana, at least based on playoffs. Bot lane bans, Fnatic banned Draven a lot. That's probably because of the amount they played G2 in playoffs. And then GAM, they do, protect Easy Love because he is a replacement. Banning out Varus, Ashe, and Tristana. Technically, Ashe is a flex, so they ban Ashe support. And Fnatic will usually ban Nautilus. In terms of what's banned against them, what is taken away? So Fnatic usually Fnatic saw a lot of Rek'Sai bans in playoffs. GAM saw a lot of Rumble bans. We saw Kiea have crazy DPM. That's because of the Rumble. In the jungle, both teams face a trio of bans on average. Fnatic, Vi, Rel, Rek'Sai. GAM, Vi as well, so both teams usually don't get to play much Vi. But they also face Nocturne and Wukong bans, 2 Levi specials. Mid lane, neither team faces mid lane bans really. Bot lane, Ashe and Zeri for Fnatic. Ashe then flexes to support. They also face Rel and Renata banned, so technically the Rel flex also banned. So the jungle facing 4 bans on Fnatic's side if you get particular about it. And then for GAM, Callista is usually banned as well as Nautilus. So the jungle is usually really constricted when teams play Fnatic and GAM, at least in the playoffs over the past month or so. So we have to kind of look at that and think to ourselves, you know, are these teams going to leave it wide open? Or are they going to ban things against each other? What's going to happen here? Understandably, I'm sure many people leave Emo and Easy Love off of their ban list because they're like, okay, these guys weren't even supposed to be here, so we're not too worried about them. But, I mean, Kiea and Levi kind of make that a easy decision. Those 2 players are really good. So thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, like it, subscribe to the channel for daily League of Legends content. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, become a YouTube supporter, and hope to see you again tomorrow.